You're lying in bed, scrolling through your phone at midnight. The room is quiet. Everyone you ever known is one tap away, and somehow it still feels hollow, like a bruise nobody else can see. You call it sadness, you call it being tired, but the real answer for why you feel this way is far stranger than either of those things. It is not an emotion, it is an alarm. Your brain did not invent loneliness to make you suffer for no reason. It built loneliness the same way it built thirst or hunger or the sharp jolt of pain when you touch something hot. Thirst tells you your body is low on water. Pain tells you tissues being damaged. Loneliness tells you something just as urgent, just as old. It tells you that you are exposed. And for almost the entire span of human history, exposed meant dead. Not dead from sadness, dead from predators, dead from starvation, dead from a rival group that found your camp undefended in the night. For roughly 200,000 years, your ancestors lived in small bands, often numbering only a few dozen people, rarely more than a couple hundred. Inside that band, you had protection, food sharing, warmth, eyes watching your back while you slept. Outside it, you had almost nothing, no walls, no weapon strong enough to face a pack of hyenas alone, no way to carry water far enough or hunt large enough game by yourself to survive a season. A human being separated from the group was a human being on borrowed time, and the body responded accordingly. The individuals who felt the danger most sharply hurried back toward the fire. They repaired the argument. They joined the hunt. They survived long enough to have children, and those children inherited the same sharp, uncomfortable wiring generation after generation until it landed in you. So, why does it still hurt to be left out of a group chat? The psychologist John Cacioppo spent much of his career trying to answer exactly that question. He argued that loneliness functions like a kind of social pain receptor, an early warning system that switches on the moment your brain senses disconnection from other people, often long before anything has actually gone wrong. It does not wait for proof of danger, it reacts to the mere possibility of it. The same way a smoke detector reacts to smoke instead of waiting around for an actual fire. That single design choice explains a lot about why loneliness feels so disproportionate to what triggered it. You did not lose a limb, you did not lose your home, you lost a reply or an invitation or a seat at a table. And yet, the feeling that floods through you can feel enormous, almost unbearable. Your ancestors needed that intensity. A mild, polite nudge would never have been enough to drag a half asleep human being out of a warm shelter and back toward the safety of the group in the middle of the night. The feeling had to be loud. It had to feel like an emergency because for most of the human history it genuinely was one. Here is where the story gets stranger. The neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger ran a series of brain imaging studies using a deceptively simple setup. Participants believed they were playing a ball tossing game online with two other people, taking turns passing a ball back and forth on a screen. In reality, the other two players were just a computer program, and at a certain point, the program simply stopped including them, tossing the ball back and forth between itself while the real participant watched, unthrown to forgotten. Nothing physical happened to them. No one said a cruel word, they were just quietly excluded from a simple digital game of catch. Their brains lit up anyway, in the exact regions that activate during physical pain. The anterior cingulate cortex, the same structure that fires when you stub your toe or press your hand against something hot, fired just as strongly when a stranger in an online game stopped passing them a ball. Your brain does not draw a clean line between social injury and physical injury. As far as your oldest neural circuitry is concerned, being excluded and being hurt run through almost the same wire. That overlap is not a coincidence. It is the cost of survival written directly into your nervous system. An ancestor who felt nothing when cast out of the group had no urgent reason to go back. An ancestor who felt it like an open wound went back immediately, mended the relationship, and lived long enough to pass that wiring forward. You inherited the wound. You did not inherit a choice in the matter. So, when rejection on social media stings far more than it logically should, that sting is not weakness, it is hundreds of thousands of years of evolutionary pressure expressing itself through a glowing phone screen at midnight. But an alarm that never turns off stops being protection, it becomes a malfunction. This is the uncomfortable twist hiding inside the story, the part that turns loneliness from a clever survival tool into a modern hazard. Your ancestors lived inside small, dense groups surrounded by the same handful of familiar faces from birth until death. Loneliness in the wet world was rare, sharp, and almost always solvable because the people who could resolve it were physically close by. Walk back toward the fire, find your group, problem resolved within hours, sometimes within minutes. Here is the part worth sitting for a moment. Your ancestors resolved this feeling through proximity. They walked back to the fire, sat among familiar faces, and let the alarm switch off naturally because the actual threat, separation from the group, had genuinely ended. You can't always do that so easily. Your version of the fire might be scattered across time zones, buried under a demanding work schedule, or complicated by distance and circumstance in ways no ancestor on an open plain ever had to navigate. But the alarm itself is not lying to you. It is not a flaw in your character, and it is not proof that something inside you is broken. It is the oldest, most loyal warning system you carry, still trying to pull you back toward the people who once kept you alive, still mistaking a quiet apartment for a dangerous, unguarded night with no one watching your back. It evolved to protect you, not to punish you. This discomfort is not the enemy, it is information, an old and urgent kind of information telling you exactly what your ancestors always knew the moment they felt it. Find your people, and the feeling will do precisely what it was built to do all along. It will fade because the danger it was warning you about has finally genuinely passed. So, tonight, when you're lying in bed scrolling through your phone at midnight and that same hollow feeling settles back into your chest, you'll know exactly what it actually is. Not sadness, not weakness, just the oldest part of you still standing guard, still keeping watch over a fire that, in some very real sense, never stopped burning at all.